he lived up to the name. Passed it if we're keeping this 200. From the ground up, literally, he ruled by setting his own rules. Keep up. A generation of Zoom. We all witnessed it. Silhouette after silhouette, iteration after iteration, he made us look, purchase, connect. Ever since he became the chosen, one thing remained unsure. Could an 18-year-old live up to a $90 million shoe contract?
The phenomenon is taken over.
Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
3 years in, we realized he was underpaid. His foot game spoke in a different way. Designs inspired by Hummers, not Ferraris. He, Ken Link, and Jason Petrie designed a system to come at the market in 2 ways, 2 times every year. The signature line and the soldier line. Inside those lines, heat. Get it?
I'm gonna take my talents to South Beach.
LeBron James captures that elusive title he so desperately coveted.
It's about damn time.
The Zoom Soldier won 25 straights. The 8 South Beaches. The 10 Corks. The Soldier 3 St. Vincent St. Mary's. Then, LeBron watch. For 2 seasons during shoe seasons, 15 and 16, he had us watching his throne of kicks like people watch Housewives and Bridgerton. From the Kith collab to the Harlem Fashion Row 16s, his tunnel and podium appearances on game days became runways. But over the years, his couture and off-court sneaker game officially established him as the culture's GOAT. No competition, no debate. The first single-name A-list global icon sneaker guy.
Oh, blocked by James!
Cleveland! This is for you!
So, take a bow. It's a must. Kinda seems like that thing we're supposed to do when a king enters the room. He told us from the beginning of his Nike commercial entitled The Beginning. I do see the light. It's up to me to get it. I am LeBron James. You don't want to be me. He probably should have changed that don't want to be to can't.
For Sneaker Legacies, I'm joined by Jason Petrie, a senior footwear designer for Nike basketball. For the past dozen years, he's been the man and the mind behind the designs of LeBron James's line. In terms of footwear, how big was Nike signing of LeBron? And then also, from your perspective, what were the early days at Nike like for you?
I remember the rumor that weekend, like, he's going to this company, he's going to that company, here's the deal, here's the numbers. And I was just thinking, it sounded at one point, I can't remember who the company was, but like they had made a huge offer, they were going to get him. And I was just like, oh my God. I wasn't even at Nike at the time, but like, he has to go to Nike. You know what I mean? Like if he doesn't, like that's going to be so upsetting. But then it flipped around, everything kind of changed that summer for a lot of different reasons for me personally. And I remember getting there and I remember going to wait in line at the Nike Portland store to buy the first game Zoom Generations, like the designer at the time, Ken Link, who was working on, all these classic LeBrons now. They were so open. Him, Trent Casper, all these guys that were building it, just let me in to watch and like fanboy about the whole thing. So, I wasn't involved in the design, but I was certainly soaking it up. And to see the entire journey, it's weird because, like the first half of it I watched and then kind of came in a little bit and then was able to kind of then take it and carry it on.
Speaking of which, how exactly did you get the opportunity to take over for Ken Link as the lead designer of LeBron's line?
I remember him pulling me into his office one night, after work, like, hey, listen, and he's very direct, he's not gonna, he's like, you're gonna be the guy for LeBron. And I was like, what you mean? Like, we're gonna go on another trip and I'm gonna help you out with this next one or whatever? Because, he had already been sketching on the 7 a little bit. The project was upcoming, and we had been ideating on it a little bit. And he was like, nope, you're going to be the guy. Da, 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 da. And I didn't feel like I was ready, to be honest with you. I don't know if I ever would have, because you're always like, give me another year and I'll be, because I was comfortable, whatever. And, but he's like, no, that's it. And so I took a deep breath and I kind of was like, all right, well, let's get it.
What is LeBron James like during the design process of one of his signature sneakers?
He's a great partner. And at this point, he's like a co-designer. The acumen has gone up and up every year. He's by far the best athlete I've ever had the opportunity to work with, as far as like going back and forth and being able to just send something or send a little text or like, show a drawing or show a rough sample, like he's a pro at this stage.
As a designer, how do you approach building footwear, building product for not only a player who's one of the greatest players of all time, but also one of the most unique athletes in terms of size and ability that, sports has ever seen? Is there any pressure, that comes along with, that task?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, we always say protect me from myself, which is something he kind of told us very early on. Just a big dude, just so fast. Those forces definitely not only take a toll on your body, but on your footwear, right? So building accordingly is a big part, and we have to keep him safe. That's the things like long live the king for us is like, no, we really want to make sure we help him live longer on court and feel younger out there. I mean, yeah, you talk about pressure. At the end of the day, like he shouldn't be thinking about his footwear out there. He should just be allowed to let his natural ability take over and do one of those things that he does so well, which is play basketball.
In your mind, what is LeBron James's legacy when it comes to sneakers?
Longevity. And it's that notion of a legacy. Like we started with Zoom Generation. My man has played a generation on court, like you're not going to see, I don't believe, a signature athlete playing in 20 of their shoes for a while to come. That's an incredible feat.
Did LeBron live up to the hype? From initially, when he came into the league, this guy, from a sneaker standpoint, has he lived up to the hype?
He has. Obviously when he was 18, he was gone after by Nike, Adidas, Reebok. He ended up signing with Nike, $90 million man, and
Did he live up to that?
I think so, yeah. He's become synonymous with Nike. He has a building on campus, and it's hard to, think about Nike without LeBron James.
Yeah, I think, from what I understand is that it was a 7-year deal, and 3.5 years into it, Nike already had their $90 million back, so they were just pocketing all the rest. I'm like, God.
So that's why my answer is the opposite. I think he exceeded it.
Okay. That's
like
right.
It was impossible to beat the hype. Everybody was calling him the next Jordan at 16.
Yeah.
And he's actually like, I'm not saying this is a debate, but there
Watch
are people that debate it. I don't agree with it, but there are people that debate that. And the fact that it's even a conversation is crazy. Like just to think of how we thought Mike as such a mythical figure that nobody could even get into that realm. And he kind of is in that tier now. And so for me, it's like, it was not only the hype and what was expected as a player, but as a brand spokesman too. He delivered on that end also. He's been an amazing ambassador for Nike. He's had a great career in terms of off the court. And he's done so much in terms of culture, media, just all his off-court stuff too, that's just totally just elevated the brand.
We haven't said anything about his sneakers though. Have his sneakers lived up to the hype?
I think at times they have. I think there's some silhouettes that have, and I think some there, there was some times you're like, it was this, that, and the other. But I really do think, in all honesty, he hit a stride with the 15 and 16 that we have not seen in a long time, especially with the collabs and what he did with it and the reach that it extended beyond. So, yeah, there's been some hit and misses sneaker-wise.
See, I love the 1 and 2, amazing shoes to hoop in. The designs were safe, but that was the old era where the colorways were just off the team. Yeah. Then he goes to Miami and the South Beach comes out. And for me, that's when his line took a whole different trajectory too, is when the 7s and 8 came out, had full-length visible air units, but now he gets some storytelling going too. And that's also, I think, when his line just kind of finally was accepted off court. The ones before, maybe they weren't as much.
And his decision on the storytelling, like I said, starting with the 15, with him going back and the LeBron watch thing was a stroke of genius. I think them letting him go back and say, shoes I, messed with when I was a kid. Can we do that with this? Can we do that with this? So they were coming up, the Ken Griffey thing, the Deion Sanders thing, the old Air Max 1 thing, just going back to all those shoes and finding a way to make those part of the storytelling to his silhouettes. Brilliant.
With the 15 specifically, he used that shoe as a vehicle to advocate for social justice. So on December 17, 2017, I believe, the Cavs played in Washington, D.C. He comes out onto the court in a mismatched pair, one white, one black shoe of the 15, equality on both And that was just a huge moment. Honestly, like, you could argue that's probably one of the biggest statements from a shoe, you know, from an athlete ever. LeBron has really branded himself through Nike as more than an athlete.
And it was more than just a word on the shoe too. Like, they didn't go to the White House for the championship presentation that year with him. He's obviously had involvement in voter registration efforts as well. So he's been on both sides of things in terms of not just wearing shoes that are gonna bring, you know, visibility to stuff, but actually having impactful messages and impactful things that come through.
He actually donated this shoe to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I was there for that event. Huge moment. He had kids from all over the country come to see the shoes, to see the museum. And, you know, the curator of the museum called those shoes in that moment a national treasure, which I'd never forget. And I just thought that it was so awesome to see, you know, a pair of basketball sneakers worn by LeBron James, you know, one of the greatest basketball players ever, in this museum, you know, dedicated to the advancement of Black people, African American people. And it was just, you know, a cool, huge moment.
And on that line, we would be not doing it any justice by not mentioning the Harlem Fashion Row line that he did to have Black women designers actually remake one of his sneakers. That has not been done, period, and he's the first to do that. So that's another significant thing that he's done. And that's more quiet and not as loud as maybe what he did with the 15s on equality, but that's a pivotal moment as well.